Good evening, everyone. I am so excited. I need to calm down, okay? I am so excited to welcome you all to the very first open mic, open site. My name is Kyla, and while some of you might know me as an advocate out here championing digital equity, literacy, inclusion, justice, and innovation, tonight I am here as Kyla, the artist. I am a poet, a singer, a songwriter, a filmmaker, and a storyteller. And you know what? It feels super amazing to step into this space and share this side of me with all of you who are tuning in. Y'all are now my new friends. So it's exciting and amazing for me to be able to share this side of myself with you. I created the collaborative community because I believe in the incredible power of art to connect us, inspire us, and bring us together. There is something magical about the way creativity can cut through the noise and speak straight to our souls. Society is evolving and facing some challenges, but throughout history, it's always been the artists who rise up to preserve our stories, spark transformation, and remind us of the beauty and resilience of the human spirit. James Baldwin once said, "The precise role of the artist is to make the world a more human dwelling place." And I hold that truth so close. Like many of you, I've felt really overwhelmed in the last few weeks by everything that's happening in the world and all around us. But in those moments when I couldn't control the chaos around me, I turned to the art. Writing has given me such strength, given me such resolve in a way that it hasn't before, because we've never seen times like this before, at least in my history. Writing has been my bridge to form a passageway from hope to hope, from despair, my anchor in the storm. And tonight I stand here because I believe, and I hope that you believe too, that art can do that for us. It can be that bridge from despair to hope, an anchor in the storm. I also believe in purpose. I feel deeply that I'm here in this little body, in this moment, for a reason, to use my voice and my gifts and my heart to create change. That's why I built the collaborative community. It's a sanctuary, really, for all of us who advocate for digital inclusion and opportunity, to also celebrate the artists within ourselves. And now, with open mic, open site, we have a stage to do just that. So, to everyone that's here, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being part of this very special moment, this movement, if you will. I invite you to visit our website to connect with us and help us to grow this community where art becomes the bridge that unites us all. Now, I want to go into a little description about Open Mic Open Site. So it's more than just an event, and it's going to be a monthly event, and you'll hear a little bit more about that later. But it really is a space where creativity and connection and energy can come alive in this virtual space. So using all of our good digital tools to connect with each other no matter where we are in the world. This is our very first showcase. And moving forward, we'll meet here together on the last Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. So, this is your stage where you can share your heart. We can share our talents. We can inspire one another through the raw power of art and expression. Every month, we'll be guided by a unique theme, and tonight's theme couldn't be more fitting for a fresh beginning. Our theme tonight is Rebirth and Renewal. It's about transformation, it's about growth, and the beauty of starting anew. And we are so fortunate tonight because we have not just one, but two incredible artists who will be sharing their gifts with us. I'm so excited. I can't wait for you to experience their brilliance. Are you feeling the energy? If you're watching, let us know if you're feeling the energy. We are ready to share. We are ready to transform. We are ready to rebirth and renew. So if you're with me, join me in welcoming our very first artist. I want to bring to the stage, the virtual stage, Maribel Martinez. She is our very first artist in our very first open mic, open site, and one of our inaugural members of the collaborative community. Maribel is a multidisciplinary artist whose lifelong passion spans abstract paintings, drawing, and fiction writing. As an experienced creative, she blends visual and literary arts to tell stories that explore identity, imagination, and social impact. Again, she's a proud member of the collaborative community, and she's here tonight to share her unique voice and vision where connectivity meets creation. So let's give her the biggest and warmest virtual welcome. Welcome, Maribel Martinez.
Kyla, that was such a warm and lovely introduction. I don't even know if I should go on. Like, that's enough. You made my night. Thank you so much for those really kind words. And like you said, it is all about rebirth and renewal. And coming from someone who's probably had a pencil in her hand and color pencils and watercolors and brushes since I was a child, I really have always continued to turn to those media to really fortify me. And as you know, working on behalf of digital adoption and enablement, times get tough sometimes. So I really do turn to being able to write, being able to paint, being able to draw. And so I want to take you on a little journey tonight because for me, this really is a form of renewal. I did step away from a lot of my creative pursuits for a long time. And honestly, sometimes it's just life's obligations that get in the way and responsibilities and just time. So I really want to take this time to celebrate the fact that I've been able to come back. And for the past couple of years, actually during COVID, I think this really started when we were on lockdown during COVID. I said, all right, well, it's a great time to work on a novel. And that's what I did. But then I needed to take a step further because the artistic stuff just wasn't there. I needed color and I needed to draw and I needed to explore that other part of myself. So I'm still writing, but now I added this other element. So last fall, I started taking art classes. Now, I have played with acrylic on media, different kinds of media for a while. So I've been painting with acrylics. I brought one here to show you, as a matter of fact. So one of my first works in acrylic is called Garnet Ascent. And to be honest, it's really just an exploration of various emotions. This one I created during an especially difficult time in my life. And so as you can probably see, it explores a few sad emotions there, but it does have a very specific purpose behind it. So this was one of the first ones I did. I do tend to do a lot of exploration when I'm experiencing highs and lows. And so another example of this would be another one titled RS, which I did last year. And this is another acrylic on canvas. Just a lot of abstract stuff because there's honestly one of the few things that makes me really happy when it comes to pushing paint is just to have no direction at all and to just let the feeling take you wherever it's going to take you. So that's another example of me just working really freely on a canvas and having absolutely no idea what's going to happen other than the inspiration behind it. But what happened last year was I decided that it was time to take a more structured approach. And I had never really taken formal art classes at all, even though I'd always wanted to. And so I signed up to take local drawing classes at a nearby botanical garden under the direction of Carlos Galastra, who's an amazing artist in his own right and teaches at local universities here in South Florida. So shout out to Carlos if you can hear. And if you're watching this evening, you're amazing. And this is in part thanks to you. So I started working with Carlos last fall, and he took me down the road of the BARG study. So the first one, or one of the first drawings that I did, was to reproduce what's known as the BARG study. So this one is a female torso. I had never drawn anything like this in my life. I didn't know that I could draw a human figure, and this was definitely a rebirth and a renewal experience for me because I really didn't know I had this in me. So out comes this bark drawing, and I thought, oh my gosh, I think I can really continue to take this further. So he keeps asking me what the next drawing is, what's going to happen next, always pushing me to continue to keep going. And so just a personal project happened after that, which was 10th River. And so 10th River really came out of a celebration. And so this was drawn for a specific person, and it's to mark an anniversary. And so this was one of the first things I ever drew in graphite, aside from the human form studies. Then Carlos looks at me and says, all right, you have a decision to make. Are you going to keep drawing in pencil, or are you going to go down the oil on canvas road? And I had never drawn or painted or done anything with oils. And so what better way to challenge myself to be born again, in a sense, than to take on an entirely new medium. So tonight, I really want to celebrate my first oil on canvas, titled Star of the Show. Now, Star of the Show is a composition that was put together by my instructor. So he actually went out and bought these pairs and must have taken about 300 shots. And he gave me the reference piece. I, of course, had the option to select it. And this spoke to me because I love theater. I love everything about the theater. I think there's definitely space for me to do community theater when I'm old and retired. I can definitely see myself doing this. And so when I saw this reference piece, it really stood out to me. I was also really curious about how I would challenge myself to create the shapes of the pears and these shadows that I had never explored before. I didn't know what all the subtleties that would go into creating something like this. And then there was also the wood. I really wanted to challenge myself to create at least as much as possible, or reproduce the wood that he staged the pears on. And so it is not an exact copy of the reference, because one thing I've learned about myself is that it really just takes on a life of its own. And so one of the things that I enjoyed doing was to deviate ever so slightly as I found joy and as I found my own mark making, hitting the canvas and really loving how that was looking and feeling. So Star of the Show is actually aptly named for my instructor, because he says that he is the green pear off to the right there at the star of the show. And he knows why, so I won't add too much meaning to that, but he knows what it is. And so again, this is why I was attracted to creating this piece, but I'm really proud of it. It is my first oil on canvas. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed exploring this, learning about so much when it comes to just starting from nothing and ending up with something like this. But I think one of the biggest joys that I've discovered about oil is that there's so much time that you're forgiven to be able to work on this piece. With acrylics, you really have to move fast. With watercolor, you have to move fast. But with oil, you can really take your time and slow it down. And so when the anxiety is high and when stress from work is high, because you have all these projects or all these things that you want to accomplish, you get to really just slow it down and focus on what's in front of you. So I really do unplug for that entire time that I'm in the studio, and I'm not thinking about anything else. And I really do think it makes me a better digital inclusion practitioner, just a better professional, a better entrepreneur. So that is what I wanted to share this evening. And thank you so much, Kyla, for the ability to be able to talk about our art and what fuels it, and also how we are sort of reborn because of it and renewed.
Amazing. First of all, let me compliment you to say how beautiful that painting is and how realistic that painting is. Like it it felt like that pear was about to fall off of the shelf. Like it was so like dynamically positioned. And again, in my art form, when I read my bio, I didn't say nothing about nobody's painting, like because my depth perception is a little off. So like when you're painting, what is like the technique to make it look like it's about to like come off the page?
Well, with this particular composition, it was all about the light
Mm,
and getting that spotlight right and those shadows just beneath. That is really what makes it feel as if you could reach out and grab it and touch it. I also want to say that the human form studies, the bark studies, the graphite drawings that I showed you earlier, absolutely had everything to do with my ability to be able to identify those lights and those shadows and to understand where the light hits and how it's bouncing off an object. So it really was key to putting everything together. None of this happens in a vacuum. This is all very much a progression. And I don't know that my art would have been the same had I just jumped into oils without the benefit of having done those studies with the graphite.
hmm And that brings me to a good point around homing your craft, right? So I heard you say that you started down a journey and then you sought out a mentor and then you started taking classes and really diving headfirst into these art forms and what it took to interpret them in the ways that you have. What was the most challenging part around like your study, right? Because sometimes, especially if you're good at a lot of things, and I know that you're good at a lot of things, you just think that you're going to show up and be good at all the things, right? But some things require patience. They require a little bit more knowledge and skill. Talk to us about that journey of seeking that knowledge and what was real challenging for you to kind of break through.
I'm one of those people that approaches some tasks based on maybe previous experience. I'll say something like, how hard can that be? But with art, I think it comes from such a vulnerable place. I didn't necessarily assume that I could create this. As a matter of fact, when I walked into art class, the first thing that my instructor pulled out was a human foot, and he basically said, "Copy it." Of course, there was all this guidance and scaffolding and just a wonderful approach one to one to help me get to that point, but I never automatically assumed that I could do it, but that was why I was there. I had to get over the discomfort of perhaps not being good at something.
Mm,
I've drawn all kinds of things, but I mainly drew animated figures, cartoon type things when I was younger. And I love landscapes, but the human figure I had never attempted. So I
mm,
really wanted to get out of my comfort zone. So I had to get out of my own head, essentially, is the answer.
mhm, mhm. And that vulnerability that you speak about, certainly it's something that I believe is key to the artistic experience. It's almost like letting go of the you that you knew. So as we talk about rebirth and renewal, it's like letting go of the you that you knew so that this other opportunity of you can show up in other forms. And so I agree with you in that vulnerability as a key function, I think, of artistic expression. So what's next for you, Maribel? So you're painted this beautiful oil. What's
Thank you.
next?
Well, I am currently working on a landscape from my favorite 14-year-old on the planet. Not my personal 14-year-old, but a 14-year-old. So she will soon be celebrating her 15th birthday, and her theme is Cinderella. And so my gift to her will be this landscape where Cinderella's countryside probably was, just based on the original author of the Cinderella story. So she selected the drawing. I'm working on that for her, and it would be very impressionistic. So I just started that like 2 weeks ago. But the more exciting thing that I'm looking forward to is now that I have this new confidence in myself to be able to draw more things. I do have a digital inclusion story, a picture book story that's been it's a manuscript that's been reviewed and loved by editors and agents, but just doesn't have a market for it. So what I want to do is to create the accompanying drawing, so all the illustrations for the story, and self-publish it.
I love that. And that's what the collaborative community is all about. We are here to support our artists in their current endeavors and their future endeavors. And so I am excited to hear about this picture book, and there is a market for this opportunity. We will find it together.
I certainly hope so. I
That
would
is
love for that book to hit the shelves. I think it's a really important story, and I would love for people to have a chance to read it.
awesome. Thank you so much, Maribel. We really appreciate you. If folks want to follow you or see more of your art, where can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. That is basically the only platform I'm working with right now, just because of the world. So they can find me on LinkedIn. My company is also on LinkedIn, and from there we can take up an email conversation.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Maribel, and thank you for being a great member of the collaborative community.
Thank you for having me and for starting this space, Kyla. I think it's an incredible way to get us out there, but also to get us connected and to stay connected. So thank you.
For sure. For sure. Whew. Those are such beautiful images. What a wonderful way to start our open mic, open site for today. Thank you again, Maribel. So, April is National Poetry Month for those who are unaware. And in the poetry community, there's a charge that happens from time to time. You know, there's lots of challenges and writing prompts that happens in the poetry community. But during National Poetry Month, typically there is a charge or in a challenge is a challenge for me to write a poem every single day of National Poetry Month, every single day of April to write a poem. So I am just letting the community know I have failed miserably because I just have not been able to pull myself together to be able to write every day. But I have read a lot of poetry daily. So although I didn't write my own poetry, I did certainly consume and appreciate a lot of poetic words that were being shared. So, in honor of National Poetry Month, I have penned a piece that aligns with our theme for today, rebirth and renewal, because I oftentimes feel a bit hard, right? So I'm responsible for a lot of things and a lot of people. And that's both professionally and both personally. And so sometimes I feel like a machine, right? Like, and I'm a very loving and caring and energetic person, but responsibility sometimes hardens you up, you know, because you have to pay attention. You have to always be alert. You know, there's not a lot of room or time for irresponsibility, because if you are irresponsible as the most responsible person, then other things suffer and sometimes fall apart, and sometimes you can't recover from some of those things. And so I wrote a poem that speaks to like how I reimagine myself. Like I reimagine myself as being um not quite irresponsible, but maybe a little bit more free. So this poem is called Between Marshmallows and Lighthouses. Between Marshmallows and Lighthouses. I want to be soft, a marshmallow melting slowly in a mug of something warm, to dissolve into kindness, safe to touch, safe to hold. I want to be gooey, sticky in the best ways. A web of connection drawing people close, a place where they can breathe, rest their weight without sinking. I dream of being open, a wide sky after the rain, vulnerable as the first crack of dawn, letting the light shine through all my fractures, unhidden, unguarded, unworried. I crave to be out of control, a loose kite in a tempest, dancing wildly wherever the wind pulls me, laughing because I've forgotten what I was supposed to hold on to. I want to be irresponsible, forget my keys on purpose, vanish for a day, walk barefoot into life and feel it raw under my skin. I long to be older and free, unthreaded from the patterns of youth, from the weight of proving anything to anyone, to wear years like a soft cloak, one that drapes gently and smells like calm, like knowing enough, like peace that doesn't need permission. But responsibility tightens its grip like a leash. It pulls me back before my foot leaves the ground. It keeps me sharp. Eyes like a hawk scanning the horizon, watching, waiting, always expecting something to fall that I must catch. It chains me, an anchor that grows heavier each time that I think I might drift free. The engine of my mind never stops, driven to solve, to push, to plan, even as the night aches around me. My head is always swiveling, a lighthouse spinning too fast, casting its beam over every shadow, unable to rest because rest feels like leaving a door unlocked. Responsibility, the endless hum in my chest, the ceaseless song of be prepared, hold it together, stay awake. I hear it when I close my eyes. I hear it when I am too tired to hear anything else. Exhaustion wraps me, its arms cold and tight, and I wonder if it's stealing the softness I so deeply desire, sculpting me into something hard, something that can bear weight but cannot break open anymore. Still, I hold this yearning, a fragile thing trembling in my palm, and maybe one day I'll melt, I'll dissolve, I'll dance, I'll forget. But for now, I'm alert, I'm astute, and I am here. And that is my poem, Between Marshmallows and Lighthouses. I hope that you enjoyed it. And for those of you who are carrying a lot of responsibility like me, I hope that you align and can resonate with that. And I wish for all of us softer days, softer, gooey, pillowy, soft days ahead. That is my dream for all of us. Thank you for allowing me to share. Now, I'm super excited to bring on our next guest. I want to bring to the stage, and before I bring him to the stage, I want to share a story. So I met this person in high school, and immediately, if you're an artsy kid, you find your tribe of artsy kids and you start hanging out with those artsy kids. And he was one of those artsy kids that I hung out with in high school. Incredible talent, and always had a sketchbook and a pencil and paint and all of that near him, on him, and in him very, very clearly. So when we were preparing the show for tonight, I wanted to offer the opportunity to bring him to this stage. I have many of his artistic pieces all over my house because I'm a big fan. And Maribel, by the way, I gotta get some of this art of yours into my home. as well, for sure. But I want to bring to the stage an incredible artist, an incredible poet, an incredible filmmaker, Paul Branton. All
Hey,
right.
good evening. Sorry.
No worries. You are a busy person, and I'm so thankful that you are here joining us for our open mic, open site. Um,
I
Paul,
appreciate the introduction.
for sure, for sure. Paul, tell us just a little bit about yourself before you move into showing us a little bit of your art.
Certainly. I'm a kid that grew up primarily on the south side of Chicago. I did spend a year of my life in Wisconsin, but don't hold that against me. Um, During my high school years, I was in the south suburbs where I was under the guidance of Dominique Falachetti, and that was the guy that really brought out the raw talent of my art. Uh, It was something that had been festering in me since I was 5 years old. Um, I went on to explore art basically my entire life, and it doesn't just consist of just paintings and drawings. I've explored art in many forms, um, both on film, on paper, uh, on stage, and written. Started a novel, still writing it. Been writing it for decades, and I just love the way that humans are able to express themselves in and out of reality. Um, I was very fortunate to have a family that has been supportive instead of, a lot of people would tell because they don't understand art or that world, or especially the commerce side of art. They'll try to deter you from going down that path. That was not the internal environment that I came from, and I'm extremely grateful for that. Um, so outside of being an artist, I try as much as I can to be an art advocate
Mhm.
and push art into communities where it's not facing forward all the time. Uh, Reach out and talk to young people because I knew at a time where a lot of people in my neighborhood probably thought I was weird. And I wasn't weird. It was I just had other interests. So if I can find those kids that feel like they are alone in these broad artistic thoughts and don't really know who to connect with, and they feel isolated because no one around them really has that same vibe, I try to let them know that they're okay and that there are many pathways.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. And you really raised a really good point, and then we're going to let you get to the art. You raised a really good point about being deterred from artistic expression. If you are raised in a home where folks feel like there's no way you can have a living, make a living at art. There's lots of folks that deter you from exploring it because they want you to explore something that will help you to be able to take care of yourself and that you can, economically more be stable. So we definitely will talk a little bit more about the commerce side of art because I think that that's super important, especially for collaborative community members, many who are coming to the community with some of those same questions like how do I monetize like this thing that I have that lots of folks say that they love but don't know really how to like move that forward in that way. So you are definitely a good expert to be able to have that conversation a little bit later, but let's get to your art.
Okay. Now where would you like me to begin? From the very beginning of like how I started and where I am now,
um,
or do
I,
you?
I I would love to see some things and tell us some stories that
Oh,
uh, align with the things that you show us. So, like starting with this painting in the back? There's a woman with like hair that almost looks a little bit like mine with a striped shirt. What art piece is that?
So that is that I made that painting shortly after Stacey Abrams had like politically charged the state of Georgia. Um, and I was inspired, number one, not just by this phenomenal woman, um, but I study us and I study history, and I know what it means um, to be down south because I'm a product of from both sides of my family of grandparents that migrated from the south to Chicago, searching for better opportunities for Black folks. Um, and you can have states down south where there may be an urban population um, that is politicized and controlled by people of color, but statewide, it may not be that way. So Georgia was one of those states where it it was deeply rooted in the tradition of what America was. And even I remember writing a poem about the dirt in Georgia and how it's red. And the reason why I think it's red is because of all the blood that was spilled down there. And it took some pretty courageous people to to move us forward, um, to create progress. And even now, when there seem to be powers that are in control that are trying to take the country and regress, it's going to take more bravery and more great people to constantly move forward. So a lot of my art is charged by things that I get inspired by, and they may not be figures like Stacey Abrams. They may be just regular folks in my community. They may just be regular subject matters that really get me excited. I have a series that I do that's involving jazz. Um, Jazz is one of the art forms. Jazz and blues is really it's an American formed piece of art. So if you would see this piece back here, uh, that is Charlie Parker, and the reason why I like Charlie Parker and that whole era of that bebop era is because that free forming style and Charlie was a person that sort of played notes in between notes, and I believe that's the way that I get a lot of things done. I do a lot of stuff that is unorthodox. I don't follow this set of rules that are pre-mandated. And of course, being an artist anyway, I see the world totally different. I process information totally different. So when I hear music that is impromptu, it it fires me up and makes me want to make greater works. Right next to the Charlie Parker piece is one of my latest pieces that I created. Um, I was raised by mostly women. It was my father, my grandfather. I had one or two uncles, but I was surrounded by a slew of women. So I'm always like creating work that speak to these black women that made us feel safe, that made us feel like we never wanted for anything. Of course, there were many times where you know if you look back on your life and there were times where I was like, whoa, we didn't have a lot. There were a lot of things that I looked at looking backwards where there were some really serious adult situations going on around me while I was a child. But because of this umbrella of these black women, I didn't feel hardly any of that stress. I never felt um, the stress that they were feeling. the pain that they were feeling. They withheld that, and they knew it was always a sunny day afterwards. And as much as I can paint about this subject matter, as much as I can celebrate these women, I do. And I do it painting after painting after painting. Um, it's just something that's important to me. And I don't think that there's ever been a piece of art that I created, even when I do commissions, that I don't try to put a piece of myself in. This painting here was a collaboration between myself and an artist named Robert Lewis Clark. When my father passed away in the year 2000, in cleaning up his stuff, I ran across his birth certificate. Now, my father was born in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. In Arkansas, at that time in 1950, on his birth certificate, it said colored. And I've always been curious about the word colored and these labels that people were given, and like, what exactly does that mean to be colored? And these are some of the themes and things that I held on to. And Robert used to do these amazing paintings with nothing but like raised letters and these vibrant colors and sometimes these monotone colors. And we were sharing a studio space, and I asked him, I said, hey man, I want to do something together. And I started talking about this idea of the word colored, both as a label, both as color as being artists, and whatever comes out of the word color. And this is the painting that we created last year. I'm always interested about relationships and the dynamics. Um, my household was cool, although it wasn't a perfect household. So I don't think I was ever shown like the perfect model of what it takes for partners to go through life. Um, but I've always been curious about it and how one person leans on someone, like their weakness is the other person's strength and vice versa. So that subject matter always sticks with me. And this is another sort of subject matter that I delve into quite a bit, whether I'm working on canvas or on paper, or actually when I write screenplays as well. The work on paper. I often do pieces that are multi-layered. For years, I've tried to, even though I was a figurative artist, I wanted to make sure that I added more context to my work. So I started to gather newspaper clippings, poems, speeches, quotes, advertising, anything that documented our time here in America. And then I would do this ink transfer, like paper on paper, and I would draw and paint on top of those. I'm also very interested in printmaking. This is a piece called Black Infinite. Uh, it's a very limited edition. I think I've only did less than 20 of these were printed, and they were all hand printed. And I believe 6 of them were actually hand painted as well. So it's always been a mixture of when I first started painting, I was really into realism, and I really tried to just capture, we're as artists, we're trained almost to technically capture something by hand that you can capture by camera. But I got kind of bored with that. Um, it wasn't enough for me, especially when I got into photography. And it just felt like I was duplicating what I was doing in photography. So I moved further and further away from that. And I started doing more expressive things. And I started painting people and figures more how I felt and less of how they looked. And then I started using different types of material. For a while, I was just strictly oil. I worked in oil for like almost a decade straight, primarily. And then I started using acrylic. And then acrylic led to other materials. And then I got to do, lately, I've been doing pieces like this, which incorporate acrylic, markers, wood, found objects. On this particular piece, there are children's blocks that are attached. I no longer felt confined to work on this square piece where it was confined by a frame. I started molding the canvases. The more I can push, the more I can challenge myself, I feel like a new excitement and a rebirth. Like every time I come to the studio, I'm searching for a new way to express myself. I'm searching for like a new way to to say the same. I could say the same subject matter, but what's a new approach to it? It has been it has been quite a journey. Um, from where I started, I love like going back or like Googling myself and like looking at old articles or looking at old pieces of artwork and to see like these different time periods of where my art started and like how it just constantly changed and evolved and it, dare I say, matured as I matured. It's been incredible.
Thank you so much, Paul, for taking us down that journey. Now, as I shared earlier in your introduction, I have a few of your pieces in my own home, but I don't know that I understood like the process behind the process, right? Like I think
Hmm.
this is the first time that I'm sitting and listening to you almost as a student of art and how you are inspired and where your creativity comes from and how that um, manifests itself into this this art form of yours. And I love that you pointed out that you are even pushing the boundary. So as we're talking about rebirth and renewal, the fact that you're molding your own canvases and that you're fighting against like the structured square of a canvas or the rectangle, um, to push the boundaries. And you said something about found items.
Yeah.
What does that mean in a painting space?
So doing things that are outside of tradition. So there are times where I can buy an already pre-stretched canvas,
Hmm.
and then I mean it's stuff I've been doing since I'll be 52 years old next week. Um, but I've been doing that since I was a teenager. But now you'll see that I have like just boxes and bags, and I paint on all types of objects. And what they turn into is works like this, where I paint on things that I find outside of painting on traditional forms, on
And so
traditional.
that's a Louis Vuitton bag, correct?
That is a Louis Vuitton bag.
Oh.
Here's a piece. It's kind of wrapped up. It's kind of hard to see, but here's an old suitcase that I painted on. Um, this piece is about migration.
Hmm. I love that. I might need to buy that because I'm doing a research project about the Great Migration. So we'll talk after the broadcast, Paul,
Yes, yes, yes.
for sure. Now you have evolved. So certainly, as you've done your art and as you've moved into your studio space and you've sold art to many folks, your art is hanging in many halls and many different places and restaurants. What was like the starting point of moving from just creating for the sake of creation to being able to move into the commerce space? Let's talk a little bit about that.
So even before you move into the commerce space, it takes a tremendous amount of bravery to even show your art to the public. So you have to get over that hurdle. Um, and that takes a tremendous amount of courage. And I commend anybody, regardless of where their career is, to not only show their work publicly, but to put themselves in that space to be critiqued, to
Mhm.
be sometimes ridiculed. You can get as much ridicule as you do praise.
Mhm.
Um, but this is what sharpens us. This is what makes us better when we can hear like how the public reacts to the work that we make, and regardless of what we're making. And and that's the one of the driving factors behind commerce, because you get to see like the things that you did very well, that was very well received, and you want to take some of those elements and carry it forward. And then some things that you think that you did great, and it's crickets, and you get like no response. Um, I mean, outside of your mother, who thinks that everything that you do is great, it's really upon, your mother can't buy everything that you make. So if you are dependent upon like, hey, I want to turn this into a business, first and foremost, you need to find out who your audience is.
Mhm.
And then once you find out who your audience is, you really need to listen with a very intense ear. Um, Intentional. I would say intentional ear. There are some things that you will hear that it makes pay it no mind. It has nothing to do with what you're doing is good or bad, but there are some things that you can pick up, um, especially if you're just standing around and just eavesdropping on some people talking amongst themselves about your work, and you can get a true sense of how people feel.
Mhm.
Um, so number two, and once you get past that bravery, I believe that most artists feel at home and at themselves and the most comfortable creating the art. They don't necessarily feel comfortable wearing the other hat, as in talking about themselves, talking about their art, facing the public, writing about their work. These are things that you have to develop and overcome.
Mhm.
I don't care how introverted you are. You could be the most introverted person. I'm extremely introverted. I grew up as a very introverted, very shy kid, very quiet kid. I'm still a shy person, quiet person, in a lot of settings. But if you want to be successful on the commerce side of this, unless you have somebody that is repping you and taking your work and doing stuff for you, you better fight against your own nature
Mhm.
of being an introvert, of being quiet, of being a statue in the room,
Mhm.
of being unable. You can create great art, but you are unable to explain it and talk and verbalize it. Um, these are things that you have to practice and get better at. And the better that you can explain your work, the more people can feel it and understand it. They can be attracted to it. But a lot of times people really don't understand what they're seeing. But when you give them that extra layer, um, it becomes easier to move your work. The third thing is to understand like where you are in the world of art, and artists exist in several different spaces. So
Mhm.
before you go out here and try to make money, you better understand like what space works best for you.
Mhm.
Um, and once you navigate and you learn where these spaces are and what spaces are more adequate to what it is that you're doing, then you need to learn how to live and operate in those spaces.
Mhm.
Um, and to be extremely successful, um, I'm a person that exists in more than one space at a time. I exist in several spaces, and I wear several hats, and I live on both sides of the fence, and it allows me the latitude to to talk to different caliber of people. It allows me to not only have a platform for my own work, but then it, I'm often given opportunities and platforms to promote other incredibly and talented individuals who, like I stated before, may not be the best at talking for themselves or may not be the best in rooms with people, um, and I know how that feels.
Yeah.
So if you can, as long as you're making like progress every single week, every single year, it's like, hey, I need to work on this. Hey, I need to get more organized with this. Hey, I need to set my prices here. Here's where the comfortability of my prices are.
Mhm.
And you make sure that as the years roll along, that those prices gradually go up. You don't want to be selling art for 10 years at the same price point. That makes no sense. There's no growth in that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Such wise words, and I think uh many of our audience members, those who are with us live and those who will be watching this later, are going to find those points very, very helpful. I love that you started with bravery and confidence because, as Maribel pointed out earlier in this broadcast, this is a vulnerable space. Like sharing the inner parts of your being in
Hmm.
an artistic way and subjecting yourself to criticism or critique is huge. It really is huge. So you've been able to traverse something that was part of your life as a young person and is ever present, of course, in your life as an adult, and even now are pushing new boundaries. So you are really representing our theme this month of rebirth and renewal, and I'm so excited to see what else comes from Branton Art. So I want to take this moment to thank you again for joining us today, for sharing, for telling great stories. And if folks want to get into your art and want to know more about you, where can they find you?
It's pretty simple. My website is basically my name is paulbranton.com. That's a Branton.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul, for appearing tonight on Open Mic, Open Site, and hopefully we'll see you sometime in the near future.
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, y'all, That's wrapping our show for today. I really do hope that there was some art that was shared, some words of inspiration that was shared, some stories that resonated with you as we continue on this journey together. Again, I am Kyla. I am the founder of the CollabARTive Community. We're still recruiting members, and we're going to be recruiting members forever, because that's what this is about. We're building a movement, we're building momentum, and we need members. We need folks who are artists, who are passionate and creative, who are working in the digital inclusion or digital equity, opportunity, transformation, equity, justice, whatever you title yourself these days. If you have art in your heart and you want to share and build community with folks, please, please, please connect with us on our website. We would love to hear from you. Our next open mic open site will be on Wednesday, May the 28th, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Our theme for May is Threads of Connection, exploring the ties that bind us, relationships, communities, and shared experiences. We will see you next month. This has been the first and inaugural episode of Open Mic Open Site. Thank you so much for tuning in.